It is my pleasure to introduce the next talk. We've got some of my favorite designers who are here to talk with us about the always interesting process of combining multiple scripts within one font. It sounds to me like the process that they used is fairly innovative and very intriguing, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. Take it away.
Hello. Can you hear us? Okay, great. Hello. We are presenting two cases of biscriptural typeface design, two typeface projects developed in discussion with each other, Arabic and Latin. And so this is Arabic two typefaces, Okasu and Ada, and Linda did Latin for Oksura, and I did the Latin for Ada, and of course Pascal did Arabic for both. So both projects are initiated by Pascal. So it's not like Latin first. So it's almost always simultaneous. So yeah, we'll start with Okasu and Oskura.
So the Okasu project started with a research in Spain about Aljomiado manuscripts, which are very old manuscripts found in Spain, that is Spanish written in Arabic. And they are very unique kind of scripts because they use the Andalusian Kufi, but in a very vernacular way. So when I started researching this project, I had to find a way to analyze these kind of manuscripts and put myself in the mind of the person that was writing these manuscripts, which were not master calligraphers, but the people that were living in Spain, and try to decide how can I translate it into a modern typography. So we did an analysis of all the letters that we could find in these manuscripts, and we rapidly noticed that there's so many different shapes for every letter, but the main characteristics is that most of the two categories is one of them is too geometric and the other is a bit more cursive. So instead of making one typeface, I said, why don't we do two typefaces? And then, so that is sketching the different ideas. This is, for example, letter Ha, and trying to understand how was it written in which flow, or how would be the real representation of it. And this is, for example, the Dal and the Fa. And I was finding that there were some letter forms that are found in manuscript that were not recorded previously in any Kufic. Master Kufic fonts. So at the end we had two typefaces, Arabic. The upper one is Oskura, which is more cursive or rounded, and the lower one is Okasu, which is more based on geometry. You can see them here side by side. And the idea is that when you look at the manuscript and you look at the end result, you see that they're not a real revival of the manuscripts, of course. They are an interpretation in a modern way typography. So, but if you look at them, you can somehow feel the main essence, it is present. And once I had an idea about the Arabic, I contacted Linda for her to come up with the Latin counterpart. So Linda.
So when Toshi approached me and told me about, the basic setup of the project, I really had no idea what this would end. I didn't have a clear idea. So if you've ever been close to, hitting the refresh button for type cooker recipe, this is how I felt that moment, because I had really contradicting ingredients for the Latin at least. So I had a constructed Kufic and I had a handwritten source, which is fluid and about, liveliness. So I went to look into what could Latin, answers be to those sources, like to a constructed Kufic, really constructive forms, and then also what would like non-scholar handwriting be, like formalized but not done professionally in a way. I don't say Arrigo wasn't professional, but and then you also go down rabbit holes like phonetical minuscule alphabets and things you find on research on the side. very lovely, but like not usable. So what looked very daunting at first ended in those two poles, like Pascal said before, a more constructed one and then a more fluid one, almost an upright italic. And while working on it, we had a lot of discussions, or needed a lot of clearance on, or a lot of dialogue on how to translate this oscureness and okasuness to this, to my script, and for both of them, staying true to their self, but also sharing a lot of similarities or the same vibe. So I had to solve a lot of, and any of you that have been doing a Latin answer to another script has those questions, or Toshi had a lot of the same questions at least. Like how do you, deal with those very multiple vertical heights that you find in the Arabic that we don't have in Latin? Like how long could I, for example, stretch the ascending and descending forms without the Latin starting to look ridiculous? Or how could, how tiny can I go with the counters? And you'll see a more extreme example of that in Ada also later. Because Arabic can just do a lot more crazy stuff. And I found myself, with a rather strict, fence-like Latin a lot of the times. So how could the lively part look without being overly funny? Like, could an upright italic solution be something for this one? And then Pascal came with the idea to make a matching slant to both poles of the project, so you could use a slanted secondary style to both of them. But I had an upright italic in the one style in the first place. I was like, oh boy, like, how does that work together? And but we found a way to make it also the question of which directions should it slant, and like all of this. And when I looked at this, the two scripts together, like we did a lot, and it made me start to do unconventional, or to me, unconventional things in the Latin. Like, for example, my caps are super small because I wanted, really different heights for the for all my only 3 ascending forms. But the caps, if I wouldn't grow them in weight, once the weight increases, they looked even tinier. Like going back now, I thought I could have even grown them more. But this is something I wasn't used to be doing in Latin. I actually wondered why we don't do this more. But this was something, of the small things. But I also did a lot of experiments trying to see what does the Arabic script bring me that could maybe, be fun to try in Latin. And one thing was to look at, the form bridges that comes from the initial, middle, and final variants that the Arabic comes with. So I drew, this is artificial introduction. It doesn't need this in the Latin. So I drew straight forms and round forms and started mixing them just to get a bit more this handwritten, spontaneous thing into the super constructed setup. So I wrote some contextual alternations, needed to come up with my own rules, and I tend to want to change them every now and then when I use the typeface, because this is artificially made. But so I got, there's a bit of liveliness sprinkled in every now and then. The second thing I tried, and you can read a lot more about this on Pascal's blog. There's like super nice articles about the whole project. We did a lot more experiments than that. Was to stretch the counters, because I had looked at the manuscripts and I was like, what are they doing? What's happening with the kaf here, for example? It can stretch like in crazy ways. So, and I asked my Arabic expert to my side, saying like, is this something you can do? And Pascal said, yeah, it can be done to some letters, stretching the counters. And then we tried it in the Arabic, and you can actually use it for justifying lines. And then I also tried it in the Latin. It was quite fun. So I stretched the straight letters that I had, and then also ligatures, and then also alternated them. So the FI is not stretched. So we also built the alternation in for it not to, look too boring and too steady. So we ended up with a setup with a weight axis is something normal to do, and ended up with a stretch axis that is actually, when we see Okasu in use, it's used heavily to stretch both the Latin and the Arabic. And then you go on.
So Okasu was the exercise about how to translate an old manuscript into the modern typographical fonts that we have nowadays with variable font and all of this. And it was clear when I started working on this project, Ada, it was clear that it's like the opposite extreme of what Okasu was. So Okasu was representing the Kufic scripts, which were the oldest scripts in the Arabic styles. We're not going to go in history, but it's one of the oldest. And Ada is based on the Ruqaa, which somehow one of the latest. It was developed in the end of during the Ottoman Empire. So this is like the opposite calligraphic cursive style of calligraphy in Arabic. Of course, the Nasalik is more the Persian style also. And it was clear that in this case, I would need the help or the consultancy of a master calligrapher to help me with it. I cannot take the challenge to do it on my own. So I started looking at the Ruqaa, and in the Ruqaa, what is really challenging is that you have to really understand what's happening with the baseline and what's happening with the letters and how they change depending on what happens before and after them. So I asked the renowned, so these are my sketches before I consulted. So how would you take a certain Ruqaa and transform it into a modern day typography? How it would work with the contrast, with the terminals? We do a round version, a sharp version, a flat version, etc. And then I got in contact with the renowned calligrapher and artist Wissam Shaukat, and he was very, I was pleased that he accepted to consult me on that. And the first thing we did is that he was advising on how we would translate also a Ruqaa into different styles, because most of the Ruqaa that we see in manuscripts or most of the available typefaces, they were in medium or bold styles. There was not any light, many light versions of it. So here we will see that we're making the exercise of how we would translate, for example, the waw, the noon, the ha, and the meme, especially that some letters, they have clotted counters, and how would we open them? We would need to come with new. So there was a big collaboration at the beginning between me and Wissam. And he was also helping me understand how would, for example, how would a letter that comes before a meme drop down or a wow, and how much will it drop less or not in order to keep the baseline. So there was all this understandings that I need to understand about the script before I start designing it. And then I started designing it, and of course, Wissam had to go in also the outlines and mark them, like make it this bit sharp, make this bit longer, or curve it in a more angular way. So this was the work with Wissam. So the first part of it, it was a collaboration between a calligrapher and a type designer. And then, so Wissam was advising only on the sharp version. So at the end, I said I want to make 3 versions of the typeface. So a sharp, a flat, and a round. And the idea was to make all of them as a variable font. But then we noticed that the round will make so many problems if we put it in the variable font. So it was only sharp and flat. But Wissam was very happy to consult me on the sharp version, but then he stopped. He said, "No, I cannot do about the flat and that. You do whatever you do. I don't know what's going to be happening with it. I don't believe this should be done, but you do it." But I had a very strong base to start from. So this is the sharp version, this is the flat version, and this is the round version. All of them, they share the same skeleton, the contrast changes, and the terminal changes. And the main idea is that the angle. So when you write Ruqaa, the calligrapher can decide to have different angles, maybe depending on the word, and it can go between 2 to 3 degrees up to 7, 8, or whatever degrees. And so I made some testing, and after some testing, I decided to go to the 5-degree angle. So the baseline slants 5 degrees up, and also the stems are 5 degrees. And also we tried to define how many levels we need to go down with the baseline, depending on the slant. So we see that we have a low level, a medium level, and a high level. So it depends what is the letter that comes after and before. It should drop down to keep the structure of the Ruqaa and the words not to escalate so much, and to keep the base form happening. And the last part, we had to understand all the different forms that each letter can have that will change depending also on if it comes in the beginning, at the middle, at the end, or if it comes before and after a specific letter. So what you see, all of these up, they are only the base shape of the ba tooth, the base of the ba or the nun or the ta without any dots. It's the tooth, the teeth. And you can see below that all of these shapes, how they change depending what's happening before and after them. And this is only one example. We applied this to all the letters that change. And then we applied contextual alternates to make, so these are only two of the examples. So from all of these options, we're showing only two now. So the teeth that comes before the nun, it will take this shape and it will make this letter combination, or what we call ligature in Latin. And the tooth and a ha will make this combination. And then the dot is added. So before, we need to work with the base forms before, and then we need to put the dots or the anchors. And we were lucky that when I decided to this typeface, that the app that we were using, which is Glyphs app, they added new features like the conditional anchors and other anchors that we can use to make elevation marks and everything. And so usually before we only had the bottom top anchors and maybe the exit entry. It was also present for a while, but not very used. And then we had extra technology that we can use for the Arabic, so it made it much more easier to make a Ruqaa within Glyphs. And then Toshi came in to help me make together all this contextual alternate come together, and also to solve the problem of the kerning, which what he created was called what we named the elevation kerning. We didn't have the technology of graphite and WASM and all what they spoke about, the Google and Adobe people 2 days ago. But we were very proud to say that we did a very good result with the present technology nowadays. And Toshi is going to speak about it.
Yeah. So actually, my first part of this collaboration project is to write OpenType code for this. So before doing Latin, well, actually after doing Latin, but anyway. So this bit, the kerning, is really tricky because in traditional kerning, you look at two characters side by side and decide kerning value. But that doesn't work because the next character might be very high, then the value should be really tight. So you need to figure out how high the following letter is, in this case, this one. So you need to start from the very end of the string and keep track of the height changes using anchors and also hidden non-spacing glyphs that we are treating as diacritics. So by clever use of anchors, those hidden glyphs and substitution, I can keep track of the height changes. That way we can determine the kerning value. So conceptually, with heightening this space, this is supposed to be one word, but it looks like two. But right example is more tightly spaced. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be super tight. It's still quite a flexible and forgiving system. So that's what we did. So, I mean, yeah, the best effort example from the 2 days ago, and we were looking at, we've done better. Anyway, so we also made a script that visualizes the height of each letter, because otherwise they will be invisible in the final version. And for each height value, each pair, we basically handwritten every kerning value. So it's not easy, but yeah, I spent a lot of time doing this. So yeah, all these yellow gaps, those are gap in the one word. So these are tightened now. This, by the way, it was actually invented by Kamal Mansour at Monotype, so it's not my invention. So even though we came up with a name, so yeah, I don't claim to own this idea. So yeah, this is how it looks, because we are now separating dots and everything. We can color them like this. And here comes the Latin design part. So when I got a project, a brief from Pascal, that was partly because I've done a Ruqaa already. This is my first Ruqaa project called Clacket, which I matched the slab, semi-slab serif design. This was more of a visual decision. But Ruqaa is a really well-established calligraphy style with very clear and simple structure and well-accepted reputation. So what is the Latin equivalent of that? And in my mind, that was a humanistic hand. For example, it was Johnston's foundational hand. So I wanted to hit a similar kind of notion, not just visual, but similar kind of impression. And on the typeface front, I've looked at calligraphic typefaces like Adrien Frutiger's Ondine. It's like a semi-medieval, but also kind of modern. And also what we shouldn't do, because, you know, making a Latin based on other scripts, I mean, this idea have always existed. It's just that it was not done better historically. So, but, you know, we are just only doing it in a more informed, a more better communicated manner. So, yeah, we need to just remind ourselves these things existed. So it starts with baseline and stem, parameters, as I did in Clacket, because you shouldn't assume everything is horizontal and vertical. So I decided to go with a shallower, but still, similar kind of treatment, which is left slanted humanistic hand, which sounds blasphemous, but that means I'm doing something new, so that's great. So it is, shallower, but it looks kind of similar angle, and all the horizontals are slanting up. And based on those parameters, I started, designing the details. This is the first iteration, basically like a sans serif design. And I thought it was a bit too bland. I wanted to add outstrokes like this, and instrokes as well. So this is a full cursive option. Eventually, we decided to go with a semi-cursive style, but with more softness brought back from Ruqaa. So this is the final design of the instrokes and outstrokes. So this is a semi-cursive. It is simple on the top, like the reference glyph in the background, because Ruqaa's stems usually start, without any decoration, but it tends to have more slashes at the bottom. So I wanted to respect that kind of behavior. So yeah, this is how it looks in different weights. This is a flat version. And like Linda's decision, I also made Latin cap height also raising as it gets bolder, although this is more subtle. But yeah, lowercase is raising at a much higher rate. And also at Pascal's requests, I made a Latin A and E, also enclosed counters version. These are stylistic set, and you can, turn on if you want to have fun. And I think it works quite well. It looks more like Arabic, but you can still read it, of course. So, I don't know what to expect in this one. Okay. Is it your turn? Yeah.
So we were looking at two really, really different projects that both, came from different sources. So one, like for Okasu and Oscura, I had pretty much a wild card from those really crazy manuscripts, and we could have probably done like 500 projects more out of those, because if you get a chance to look at them, they're brilliant. And then we looked at the like a Ruqaa-inspired typeface that comes with a lot more expectations to it. So the two projects turned into a scope that we didn't really expect it maybe when we took off, or maybe also were advised not to do in the different styles or something. But we still had a lot of similar questions on the way, and it was really nice preparing the talk, actually talking to Toshi, and to see that we have similar things we were dealing with, like the question of, does the other script and the logic of the other script give me the challenges that I face in Latin, or is it the design of the script that actually gives those questions? So we can only warmest recommend that kind of collaborative projects because we enjoyed it so much on the way, and we just want to encourage to think a bit more outside the box. Thank you.
If I can add one more
Yeah.
thing. There's some nice flyers there, so if you're interested and you don't have a copy, please take them. They are small posters. And just also to end, I would like to say that working with Linda and Toshi and Wissam, it gave me new perspectives about stuff that I didn't know before. So for example, with Linda, we were experimenting the Arabic in a new way and how it will affect the Latin. With Wissam, I learned a lot about calligraphy, which I didn't know. I thought I knew a lot, but it showed out that I didn't know much. And with Toshi, I learned a lot about new coding techniques and Opentype features. And it's really interesting to always work as a team, not individually. So it enriches so much each project. So I encourage everyone to work in teams and share your expertise.
And not Latin first.
I'm not